今日の最後の英語のセッションです。ティアドアさんはフランスから今日は来てくれました。よろしいでしょうか。次のセッションスタートします。
Yeah, good evening. So I'm going to talk about offline Drupal and progressive web app.
プログレッシブウェブアップとオフラインで使えるドルプルについて話したいと思います。
There are some slides in Japanese, so if you can't read it, just listen.
で日本語のスライドもせっかく入れてるから読みましょう。
So my name is Theodore Biadala. On drupal.org, my name is node_.
drupal.org で node でアンダーバーを探してください。
I started working with Drupal in 2009, and I've been a Drupal consultant since 2010. I'm also the JavaScript maintainer for Drupal core, so Drupal 7 and 8. There are two of us, and I was the first one back in 2012. I worked for Tag1 and Acquia for a number of years as well. It was fun, but tough. But we're here to talk about offline. So when you talk about offline, you talk about smartphones. So this is the growth of the smartphone usage in the world. So at the very end, it's 2019. And there's going to be 8 billion smartphones in use in the world, which means pretty much everyone is going to have a smartphone in a couple of years now. So smartphone introduce a new problem, which is people are not always connected. And as web developer, we need to account for that. So new people are coming online, mainly from China, India, and Africa. And those people browse the web mainly with smartphones, which are connected with 2G or 3G networks. So it's not extremely fast, it's not extremely reliable, but even in developed countries, we sometimes go in tunnels where there's no reception, so we don't always have a constant connection available to us, which means that when we browse websites, it's going to impact everyone, even in developed countries. A few years ago, we had the Mobile First initiative to make websites responsive so you could see them on a mobile device, and now it became offline first to make sure that we allow people to view websites even when they're not online. So how to do that? We do that with progressive web apps. This is the response to native apps from the web. It's a way to get rid of native apps for most use cases, basically. It's a marketing term, it's not a technology, it's a set of technology under the progressive web app name. Google created the name, and they create a lot of content around it to make sure that everyone knows about it and use it. So they create presentations, articles, and videos about how to use it, when to use it, and how to integrate with existing websites. So this is the definition of progressive web app, but why would you use it, and I mean, how can it be useful to you? Yep. So first, when we have a website, there are some bad side, good side. So first, native app, we have good OS operating system integration. So it looks good in your list of apps on your device. You you can have push notifications from your native application. The native app works offline because you downloaded a huge amount of data to install it to begin with. You can control the hardware, so GPS, even the vibration in your smartphone. You can control that with your native apps. But the problem is that it's expensive to develop a native app. Yeah? Oh, yeah, better. Sorry about that. So now you have to wake up. So yeah, a native app is expensive to develop because you need to develop one for Android, iOS. I mean, there are frameworks to help, but it's not simple. It's big to install. I mean, you need to go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the app. If your data is limited, it can be really expensive to just install a big app. And Google or Apple control which app is on the store. So if they don't like yours, they can get rid of it and you can't do anything about it, which is kind of a problem. On the other hand, websites, once you have a website, you don't need to pay extra to have a website. It's your website. But you can only see it inside the browser. So you don't have all the nice operating system integration that you have with native apps. It doesn't work offline. If you're offline, you get Dinosaur in Chrome. So it's not really helpful. You can't really control the hardware. But you don't need to install it. You just visit the page and the content is available to you. So, how can we make that better? With Progressive Web App, it's a bit nicer, but not perfect yet. We're getting there. So Progressive Web App allows websites to be integrated into the operating system to look much more like an app than a website. It can work offline if you do it properly. And you have some control over the hardware. So you can access a few hardware APIs through the browser. You can do that with website as well, but it's better to do it like that anyway. But the only problem with that is it's only available on Android right now. So if you have iOS, it doesn't really work yet. Hopefully they will, they are doing some work on it, but it's not ready yet. So Progressive Web App are an improvement of our website and kind of address most use cases. A lot of native apps are just a proxy to a website. They're not really interesting by themselves. They could easily be replaced with Progressive Web Apps. So how to implement that? First, you need HTTPS. Your website needs to be in HTTPS for this to work. Otherwise, you can't. Progressive Web App can be enabled on your website because of security concerns. Ideally, you see it is responsive because if you see it on the mobile device, it should look good. And the two new things that you need to have for Progressive Web App is a manifest.json file and service worker. So the manifest.json file is going to control the operating system integration of your website inside the device. So when you click on the Add to Home Screen button in Chrome for Android, for example, you can control what is the color of the toolbar in the first screen, what is the name of the shortcut that's going to be created, also what is the image used on the home screen for your website. And once you bookmark the website, when you click on it, you get a splash page that you can configure as well. So the user doesn't have to see a blank page for like 2-3 seconds while the website launches. So this file is going to store your website metadata. It's going to handle how it's going to look inside your device. But one good thing is that it's just one file, right? It's not 12 meta tags to define every single combination of Apple device and icon size. So you don't add much more HTML to your page to configure everything. So to use one, just add a link tag to your header. And inside this file, I mean, this is a sample file to get the pictures we had before, like the voice icon and the name, the splash screen. So this is what you need to configure what you've seen before. So it's pretty simple. But this is just, the first part, the easy stuff. Now we're going to talk about service worker. Who heard about service worker? Okay, some of you. Yeah, sorry, this one is in English. Sorry. Service worker is just it's a JavaScript file that we're going to use, in a specific way. Conceptually, it's a proxy on the client side. So all the requests made by the browser will go through the service worker. That way you can act on them. Service worker has a dedicated cache. So it's not the browser cache, it's the service worker cache. And this cache can be fully controlled. So we have to define what we put in there, what we remove from there, so there's no automatic expiration of cache data, right? Service worker allows background synchronization. So user is offline, it does something, you save the data offline, and when it goes back online, you can synchronize what it did. So you don't lose data even if you're offline. You can have push notification from website, even if the website is closed. So if you open the website, you close Chrome, you can still get push notification even with the website closed, right? So this is really different from what we're used to. So it's better than WebSocket in a sense. It works for websites, like usual websites, and single page apps. It doesn't really matter which type of website you have. It's the same thing as far as service worker is concerned. And yeah, it works even when the browser is closed, which is why you can have background synchronization and push notification on your phone. So the big use cases for service worker is, the first one is you want your website to be available offline. This is what it was designed to do. There are side effects, like you can improve the performance of your website by loading all the assets from the cache and not from the network. So once it's in the cache, it's never going back to the network unless you decide to look in the network. You can send push notification to user, something change in their booking, hotel room booking. You want to make sure they have the information. You send a push notification, and they will see it as a native, notification on the phone. You can synchronize data that they created offline when they go back online, and I mean, the last one is a bit, it's not very typical, but you can add a timeout to request. So if you know you use a third party that is really slow to answer, you can say after 500 milliseconds, I'm dropping the request and I continue to load my page. That way, your page never hangs on a third party request. So for example, if you have a Twitter widget, Twitter goes down, it happened, and your page doesn't load because the Twitter widget never loads, you can avoid that with Service Worker. Now the part that hurts a bit, browser support. Because I mean, even if it's not inside the browser UI, it still uses a browser in the end. Chrome is driving the implementation. So we have the most up-to-date and complete implementation of Service Worker. Then Firefox. Opera is just based on Chrome, so it's the same. The last one is Samsung Internet. It's another version of Chrome, so they have Service Worker as well. Safari, they're starting to implement parts of the API required to make Service Worker available, but they didn't commit to a date on saying, okay, Service Worker will be available in 2 years. We don't know. And IE is working actively on it, and it's almost ready to ship in a stable version. You can enable it in the developer option in Edge, not IE, Edge, sorry, but it's not available by default yet. So now there's a little bit of code. Hopefully you can follow. So this is like the usual request that you have without Service Worker. Just the page, the browser asks for a page to the network, and he gets the response back. So there's nothing fancy going on, but it's just to show you the way to activate a Service Worker on your website. So in your HTML page, you're going to have a little bit of script. So the navigator.serviceworker.register. And this is all you need on the HTML page to install a Service Worker for your website. Right? Pretty simple. So the serviceworker.js file that you have, to do this diagram, so just proxying request without changing anything, you listen to the fetch event inside the Service Worker, and you respond with the fetch function. So the fetch function is a new XML HTTP request object that's much nicer to work with. But basically that's all you need, and you have a Service Worker. It doesn't do anything, but it's there. So a simple proxy to do something a bit more interesting. So now we do the same thing. We ask for a page to the network. But when we get the response back, we put that in the Service Worker cache. So our page is going to be in the cache, in the event that the user goes offline for some reason. But this is not the usual browser cache, right? If you do a hard refresh on your page, this is not going to be emptied. It's going to stay there. So now we have a page in cache, right? Now the user tried to refresh the page, but he's offline. You try to fetch the page on the network. It fails because there's no network. So you look into the cache and send the cached version of your page to the user. So he will see content, but it's going to be cached content. Right? But at least it's not like the Chrome dinosaur when you're offline. So the code to do that, it's pretty simple actually. So in the fetch event handler, you're going to have, so the fetch function to get data from the network is going to fail, so you catch it, and if there's an error, you look into the cache, so you do cache match, and the request object that the browser needs. I mean, I'm not going to detail all the APIs because it would take a couple of hours, but that, the short version of it. So this is when you have a page inside the cache. But if the cache is empty, or the user tried to request a different page, you can still do something. You can still send like default data. So you can have like a you are offline page, and you send that page for every request that is not in the cache. That way the user still see your browser, well, your website, sorry, but it's not the content he wants, but it is not out of your website. Alright, so running low on time, so I'm going to go quickly on that. So you can do push notification, right? I talked about that. The API is really simple as well. You listen to the push event inside the service worker. I mean, you need to have a server that actually sends the notification, but on the service worker side, you only need this little piece of code to actually display the notification to the user. So, it's just a function call. They are in the parameter of this function. You set the title, the content, the message, and so on. But it's that simple. So we went through manifest.json, the service worker. What about Drupal, right? There's a module for that. So if you want to have a service worker in your Drupal 7 website, the 8 version is not ready. You can install the PWA module and enable it, and you're pretty much done. This module will create a manifest.json file for you, add it to all your pages so that it will be used. And it will provide the default service worker file that cache all the HTML pages the user visits, and cache all the JavaScript and CSS, and serve them from cache. I mean, they're refreshed in the background, but all the assets come from the cache, all the HTML goes in the cache if the user goes offline. I hope to get that in Drupal 8 core, so there's an issue for that. If you're interested in it, check out this issue, subscribe to it, or add a comment saying that you want this feature in Drupal core, because this is still at the debating whether it's a good idea or not stage. But for Drupal, that's pretty much it. I got a couple of demos. So if you want to try out a progressive web app, so this is a Drupal 7 website. I added the PWA module, didn't do much else, so you can browse there. So once once you open that in your browser, so Android, Chrome, that kind of stuff, you can go offline and try to refresh, and it should work, hopefully. But this is just a pretty stupid website. There's a more advanced demo. So the website is Boshake. It's like Airbnb for your pets. If you go to travel somewhere and you want your cat handled, you can use this website to find someone who will keep your cat. to see the progressive web app work, you need to log in. So this is a user and password. And that way, once you log in, you will have access to the website, even if you're offline. I mean, I don't have time to show a demonstration, but I can do afterwards if you're interested. Or you can do it yourself, actually. So, as well, that's a Drupal 7 website. And they just enabled the PWA module, did some tweaking, not too much, and it works. So, pretty easy. If you want more demonstration, like bigger and more advanced use of Service Worker, you can go to the pwa.orgs module website, and they have a list of like big websites and companies that use Service Worker. Flipkart is like the main example they give in most presentations because it's been done since the beginning of Service Worker availability, and it's well done. So check out Flipkart and see how it feels to have a website instead of an app, and you'll see that it doesn't really change much. All right, so it's pretty much the end. Progressive web app are the future, really. It's even bigger than Ajax. Ajax was, changed the way we develop websites, and this changes much more than that. Because, to some extent, once it's available on iOS, you don't need to have a native application. You can tell your client, I have your website as a progressive web app, and you don't need to be on the App Store anymore because nobody will find your app inside the 100 million useless apps, right? If the browser doesn't support Service Worker or the manifest.json file, it doesn't matter because it's progressive, so it won't change anything for the user. They won't be able to see the website offline, but it won't break the navigation or anything. And in most cases, the PWA removed the need for a native app. And you could argue that it's better than a native app as well, because you don't need to download like 50 megs of data to just have a website available to you. One of the improvements that will come later is that Chrome will create an actual app from your Service Worker. So you will have an APK file generated on the fly by Android and installed on your device. So it will actually be like a native app. And that's it. If you have, so a couple of resources. If you want more code, for example, I started a GitHub repository with some example about background synchronization, as well as push notification, that kind of things. If you want to do things not manually, but you want someone else to take care of all the messy stuff, you can use the library from Google to define how the pages should be cached in your Service Worker. And then some more resources on the general concept of progressive web app. I didn't find anything in Japanese, so sorry, but at least it's available in English. Any questions? Or maybe translation first. Sorry.
じゃあ、サムリを簡単にしますが、日本語のスライドはありましたので、ほとんどわかると思うんですから、私が、記録したのは英語でしか書いてなかったところを説明しますね。もちろんインドとか中国で、スマートフォンを、使う人が増えてるし、そしてこの人たちは結構接続が悪いネットワークを使っているから、オフラインになることは多い。で、彼は説明をしたのはですね、そのネイティブアップ対、ウェブページ、その特典と利点と不利点がを伸びたんですよね。それから、ネイティブアップとそのプログレッシブウェブサイトのいいところと悪いところで、一番大きな弱点が、今のところではですね、Android でしか動かないということですね。将来はそれが変わるかもしれないんですが、エッジがもうすぐ、できるようになりますので、Firefox はいつできるかというのははっきりしてないとかですね。それで何ができるかというと、そのマニフェスト JSON を使っているサービスワーカーが、今、一番有利な、やり方なんで、すべてのブラウザリクエストがそのサービスワーカーを通っていくんですから、通るときに、アクションを耐えることができるんですね。それを持って何かできる。で、出てきてのキャッシュをつけることができますね。それとバックグラウンドシンクロナイゼーションで、ブラウザが閉まっているときでも、処理することができます。このサービスワーカーを使うと。今、Drupal の、PWA の、D7 の PWA のモジュールがあります。それを使うことができます。ですごく重要な点はプログレッシブだから、例えば WebWorker とかその他の、オフラインで使える機能が使えなくても、普通のウェブサイトとしては機能するから、損するところはない。そのぐらいですね。質問お願いします。
質問のある方。お願いします。すみません、マイクが電池切れで、はい、1本しかなくて、ちょっとマイクも疲れてきた感じなので。
実際に何かのサービスとかで、このアプリを作ってリリースされたこととかはありますか
？Have you or someone else actually using this in a production application on the web? Has something been released and is actually in use using this progressive web apps? Have you?
No, I don't have any clients that could use it, but the project is almost in production. The demo Airbnb page.
今、彼はそれを利用しているクライアントはいないんですけど、さっき彼が例として挙げたのは、もうすぐ、プロダクションに入ります。
ありがとうございます。Thank you.
This will be coming first.
One question. As far as I understand it, I'm not sure if I'm right. You can only have one service worker per domain. How would you, if you include, no?
So you can have, the question was if you could have different, several service workers on the same domain, the service worker is bound to your app. So you can have different service workers on different like prefix, alias prefix or something. So you can have several service workers on one website.
But if for example, if you include this PWA in core, and then you want to do something else, how would you?
So it works with the specificity. So if you have a more specific service worker, it's going to be used instead of the default one. Because this one has like a global scope, and if you have a more specific one, that will be used first.
一つのドメインで複数のサービスワーカーが使えるかという話で、スペシフィシティだからデフォルト規定の、そのドメイン名だけだったらこれを使うという設定になってるんですけど、前に例えば、ドメイン名の前に何かプリフィックスとかをつけると、それが別のサービスワークを利用することができる。
You gave a list of browsers that are compatible. Is that also is that only on devices, or is that also in web-based or like PC-based browsers?
Also in desktop, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
For example, the add to home screen stuff, I can use it. I'm on Linux. I can use it in GNOME to add like a shortcut as an application.
So when you gave Chrome as an example that can be used, will that also work on Chrome on iPhones?
No.
Or it's only a browser-based Chrome?
Wait, because Chrome on iPhone uses
The
Safari,
Apple.
so as long as they don't implement it, you can't use it on iOS. But I heard there's a workaround with something, I don't remember what, but there's a way to make it work.
さっきの質問は、その彼の話は、スマートフォン中心だったんですから、どのブラウザが使えるかというのはスマートフォンだけですかってそうではなくて、デスクトップでも使えるやつと使えないやつはもう説明の通りで、ただ、スマートフォンだと Android で使えないけど、Linux でも、使うことができます、デスクトップでは。
Have another view, hello. In terms of the service worker working even when you close the website, what are your thoughts on intrusion, security, and firewalls?
Yeah, it's a bit scary, but that's why it's HTTPS. So there's nobody that mess with the service worker. But I mean, it's not the whole site in memory. It's like Chrome, they just, pull for changes and then actually start the service worker when it's needed. So it's not always on, it's just pulling for changes.
ブラウザが閉じてある時でも、このサービスワーカーが使える仕事ができるということで、それでセキュリティの問題は起きないんでしょうかという質問に対して、物が変わる時とかですね、情報が変わる時とかだけに利用されるから、それともう HTTPS のみなんで、その問題はそんなにないでしょうという。
他に質問ありますでしょうか。大丈夫ですか。テオ君、ちょっと今日用事があるのでこの後は入れないので質問があればぜひ今のうちにという感じなんですが大丈夫でしょうか。はい、OK です。じゃあどうも研究テオ君。